Thank you guys so much for tuning in again for another episode of Tharon's Take. This week, we're going to do something a little different, and we're going to have facts, but we're also going to couple it with some fun and really say some things that I think a lot of our friends are sort of talking about. And that is this crusade, this trail, this march by the Buddhist monks. I'm joined today by Itoro Twin, who is responsible for all of this lighting, all of this production, who's usually behind the camera. But this is a guy who, when I was talking about wanting to do this episode, Itoro, you knew a lot about this journey that started back in October 26th. So today, what I want you to do is tell us how this started, where did the monks start from, and then we're going to get into how they have now come into Georgia, how they were received, and then lastly, what do we think is going to happen from here? So give our viewers and listeners a sort of snapshot. Take us down a little bit of a historical path to tell us what's going on now and what we have embarked upon in Georgia.
Absolutely. So these monks began their journey on October 26th from Fort Worth, Texas. And they marched through Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Montgomery, Alabama, Selma, Alabama, and ultimately through Morrow, Decatur, Scottsdale, as they make their way through Snellville, Athens, Charlotte, Richmond, and then ultimately in D.C.
Okay. How long is the actual march? How many miles?
2,300 miles.
How many people roughly are along the march? Like how many Buddhists?
Roughly a dozen Buddhists.
And you told me about the dog, Aloka.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit more about Aloka.
Aloka is loyal. Aloka is the kind of dog that you would say, a man should desire to have. When one of the nights they were walking through metro Atlanta, there were bitterly cold temperatures outside. I mean, the wind chill was under 20 degrees. It was difficult for this dog to kind of keep up because of the cold weather, right? But as the monks put Aloka into their safety RV, their RV for which has their food, medicine, safety, all those different kind of things. As they were marching along, Aloka was bellowing out, like crying out, because he wanted to be on the road with them. He didn't want to be in the RV with the heat and the comfort and all those different things. And it just goes to show you that these Buddhist monks are in tune with one another. So much so that the dog, Aloka, utterly refuses to stay inside the RV, would rather brave the cold and the elements and walk with the Buddhists.
So Aloka is getting a lot of necessary attention because
Mhm.
when you look at the Instagram page, I did see the barking. I didn't realize that happened in Metro Atlanta. So thank you for clarifying that. But what you also see is that when you look at the information on the Instagram and other pages, the monks are not asking for donations immediately. What they're asking
Mhm.
for is for people to pray for peace. This is a walk for peace. But then as you go down, they do say that while they're not selling merchandise, there are ways for people to donate to the cause.
Right. Absolutely.
So let's get into it, Toro. Our great state of Georgia, our great cities. They came and they entered through West Point,
Mhm.
Georgia, and they worked their way up from the southern part of the state to now the northern part of the state, which they exited through the northern part. They went through Athens and other places, Lawrenceville, Gwinnett. But when they came to Morrow, Georgia, and shout out to my folks in Clayton County, the chairwoman, Dr. Alika Anderson Henry, is a friend, and the Morrow mayor, all these folks. But it was different than how they were received in DeKalb County,
Mhm.
which is cities like Decatur and Scottsdale. When I saw those images of the police officers, and by the way, shout out to the women and men in law enforcement who are trying to escort them on these streets to make sure they're peacefully um, sort of crusading through the city. We did have some folks that were a little I want to say a little, acting like, they were in Clayco.
Oh yeah,
And it was energy, but it was a sense of belonging. No one was violent. No one was trying to
that's
attack
right.
anyone.
Mhm.
But what was your reaction when you saw the camera phones? And we have unconfirmed clips that said that when they gathered to speak, the monks speak, it was a little rowdy at times, and there was some leaders, state representatives apparently, who had to calm the crowd.
I went to see the monks in Clayton County. The monks were walking for peace, and at this event in Morrow, there was maybe 10 minutes of peace. There was a fight inside while the monks were there. A whole fist connected with the lady's mouth. It was not handled well. Most of y'all were being rude, talking, clapping, being loud, being on your cell phone. While the monks were there, after they said do not do that, most people weren't listening to the representative giving out instructions, but did after. After one of the Clayton County reps had to chastise people to listen to her. When they finally did and we got to a peaceful place, in the room, it was cool until more people started coming in and not caring. Why are you coming into this peaceful place? Loud on your cell phone, starting fight, pushing and shoving to get to the front, not staying in your seat, as they instructed, overcrowding the monks. After they said do not do that, because it would overwhelm the monks. Some of y'all just don't deserve peace.
So why do you think it was different in Morrow versus DeKalb? And these are two counties who are kind of close to each other. But I think it was excitement. It was nobody trying to disrupt. But we just had to be who we are at that moment.
Right.
So tell me what you think about why the reaction was the way it was.
I believe the reaction in Morrow was just joy and jubilance and excitement. Like, Atlanta usually gets all the big stuff and the important stuff and the unique events and experiences. Folks that live in Morrow, folks that live in Stockbridge, folks that live in Riverdale, Union City, Jonesboro, all out that way, right along Highway 138 that runs through there. They don't really get these kinds of, once in a lifetime, once in a, events like this. So it was the enthusiasm that just shone through. It just came out, just overflowing like you dumping a bucket of water. It just goes everywhere. That was the enthusiasm just showing out. And, people said, well, it should have been more reverent or whatever. The monks said, some people are silent, others are joyful. We receive the joy no matter how it shows up.
And the coolness from the monk when he spoke, that was the thing that I think was awesome, because along the way you could see the chairwoman and State Representative Sandra Scott marching alone. So let's make sure that our listeners know that the government officials deserve a lot of credit, because they were able to be notified that the march, the walk for peace was coming to their cities. So the police officers was there to guide them along the way. But then, Toro, am I hearing that maybe DeKalb was a little bit more bougie? Because they weren't as turned up as Morrow.
They kind of, I'll say this, DeKalb, Decatur specifically, Decatur City specifically, is more aggressive, more kind of worldly. They kind of understand, like,
so they got more than just black people.
They got more than just us. But at the same time, it's like, they kind of had this respect and reverence for them, for the monks, because this was a solemn journey.
But Georgia is a place that's responded through elections to say, hey, we don't like what's going on.
Right.
And I think that if you look at Clayton County and DeKalb County, which, by the way, is two of our Democratic stronghold counties, you don't win a statewide election in Georgia if you're a Democrat without having a strong showing from this county.
That's right.
And, we're not picking on Morrow, but I do think that you phrased it right, Toro. It was a level of excitement, but also people could relate to somebody taking a chance, marching, most of them bare feet, with a dog. With an RV, and you schooled me on this. I've been wondering, how many breaks do they take? So they stay overnight in DeKalb. So shout out to DeKalb for hosting them. But let's take it to the next level. So You said that this is sort of a young person's modern day civil rights movement moment.
Right.
This is their Edmunds Pettus Bridge. This is their Bloody Sunday. This is their Montgomery bus boycott. This is the women's rights march that we all watched. This is their sort of boycott to try to make sure that sanitation workers get the money that they deserve. And it's also our modern day call for raising the minimum wage.
Right.
What do we do from here? So the monks are gone in Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
and we still got this. One, we still got public safety that is still a paramount issue
Mm-hmm.
in this region. We just saw some unruly kids over in Atlantic Station
Mm-hmm.
get together. We thought it was fireworks, but now it turned out it was actually gunfire.
Gunfire, right. Mm-hmm.
We still need to expand subsidies for healthcare. There are people in Georgia right now that are not enrolling or re-enrolling in an Affordable Care Act because they can't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
We still got a need to improve our public schools.
Mm-hmm.
Cost of living is still too high.
Right.
So my question is, I just laid all these things out for you. Do you think the Walk for Peace, the embracement of the monks, getting them through the state safely, but also making sure that they were met with excitement and really endearment, that we
Mhm.
wanted them to know that Georgia supports this Walk for Peace? But do you think it will help solve some of those more immediate issues that I talked to you about here locally?
I think the monks' journey through Georgia connects the nonviolence element of Martin Luther King's movement to the present day, to today, because the Buddhist monks came through here peacefully, soft-spoken, didn't cause any huge ruckus, didn't go on TV stations and radio stations and, seeking out media. Instead, the people went to them and was like, "What? I want to know more. How can I do more? How can I get involved? What do I need to do? How do we take this further?" This march that they're on is the through line that connects Martin Luther King's nonviolent approach to the present day. Now, how do we spin this forward? The individuals that are inspired by, the monks marching through our state, they now have the responsibility. The people that were so beyond the spectacle, that really felt like, I'm compelled to do something. In a few weeks, there is a legislative session that's going to open in a gold dome that's on the corner of Washington Avenue and Mitchell Street in Atlanta, Georgia. There's going to be some deliberations starting mid to late January. Now is the time for those individuals that were so inspired to go do something. Now is the time to take those proverbial arms and go down to the Capitol and start arguing for what is right in our state. The second thing, you mentioned healthcare. We know someone or somebody that is going to suffer because subsidies are going up, because the cost of care is going up. And there's going to be some members in our community that are going to become our ancestors, sadly, because cost is just entirely, they're running amok. They're astronomical. They're going to be astronomical. For the individuals that were inspired by the monks coming through here, now is the time. There's no better time than now to get involved, to get active, to learn about the issues, to speak out about the issues. We all have social media. We all have cameras on our phones. and we all have internet signals on our phones. We can get the message out without needing PR and a fancy setup and all these different things. Just share your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Just share your heart and be real with people. Not only about the issues you care about, but more importantly, how these issues affect you
Right.
on a day-to-day basis. So I think that's the main takeaway to the charge I have to the individuals that feel compelled to act.
So the other thing that I noticed when I saw the Buddhist monks marching is that I started thinking about the civil rights movement, Congressman John Lewis, and how he would always talk about that Mahatma Gandhi was the person that he studied and that he met. And that if you look at the tools of the nonviolent protest, that was happening in 2025. I mean, we just witnessed the 2025 version of it.
Mhm.
So it was the sort of linchpin, the collaboration between the teachings of Gandhi, but also utilizing it in a way that resonated with people in 2025. To me, that was, we can't really look at this and realize what's going on and not mention Gandhi.
Absolutely right. And what we witnessed here in Georgia was the through line that connected MLK and his teachings and his purpose and his raison d'etre, if you will, to what the Buddhist monks were doing in our state, as we closed out 2025. The fact that you had people from Morrow joyfully receiving them, right? And they were just exuberant that, like, we have people here that are about something positive, and we don't see anything like this going on in our backyard. I believe, the inspiration that comes from that is just a beautiful thing. You know what I mean? By the way, it's an election year. all of your elected officials are crying out for the public to speak up about whatever it is that's affecting them. Because whatever it is that's affecting you, me, our families, ultimately affect the legislation that we have to abide by.
Right.
Right? So anybody, be it in Morrow, be it in Decatur, Scottsdale, Athens, Atlanta, GA, that feels some kind of way and is like, well, their example is stirring something up within me. We all have social media.
Mm-hmm.
Just share your heart.
Yeah, share your heart.
Just share your heart. Just say, listen, like, my rent is this. The cost of food is rising by the day, But at the end of the day, what you find is that when people share their heart, ultimately you find more people, you discover more people that have the same issues that you do. And then all these individuals are united around certain changes they want to see made. Then you have a sense of community. Now we're bound by purpose. We're bound by purpose. We're bound by action. We're bound by, we want to see these changes in our community. We want to see these changes in our neighborhoods. We want to see these changes in our police departments, in our daily activities. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I firmly believe, the monks marching through our state, you'll see some, they planted some seeds in they planted some seeds in our people. I firmly believe that.
Absolutely. And I think that, what's going to be interesting to see is once the walk concludes in Washington, D.C., how all of those states and cities will respond. And I agree with you. The legislative session is going to highlight issues around healthcare. You and I were talking throughout this podcast about how there's folks that we both know that subsidies are going to go up. Matter of fact, they've already gone up, and that kids are still in school and making sure that public safety continues to be paramount and school safety. And then I think that the cost of living right now is still very high. You're seeing voters respond to that, who they're electing. But the biggest thing that I think that we as Georgians rewarded was the monks and Aloka and all the
Yes.
folks in law enforcement and others. We like to celebrate sacrifice.
That's
And
right.
there's a tremendous sacrifice that these monks are taking to walk that far, to not have access right away to the necessary food and water, and more importantly, the families that they're probably not spending time with during that holiday season that they could have been with. So I think this episode today was great. I just encourage everyone to listen to what Toro said, and that is that let's not let this sort of walk for peace just end today. There's always a more need for peace. There's always more to be done, and there's really also a way for us to always make sure that our voices are heard. And let's not frown upon those people who just, I think, were just a little excited.
Right.
And we did it the Georgia, Clayton County, DeKalb County, Gwinnett County way. Shout out to Clark County and Athens as well. And we'll see how it all turns out. But again, thank you all so much for tuning in to this week's of Tharon's Take. We will come back early in the year with some other episodes that we're going to talk about politics, arts, and culture.